In this Around the Table, Sherry, Dana, and I share stories and explore how to move intentionally towards the tables that we've either been invited to or that we're hosting. How do we invite conversation that is fun and meaningful and keep in mind who is sitting at our table? So let's join the conversation.
Welcome tonight to the Deepening Communities Around the Table Zoom. We were just talking about how a year ago we had a great conversation about the tension that we experience around holiday tables with family and with friends. So tonight we're excited to talk about what it might look like to choose to bring intention to our tables, not just holidays, but year round. But first, Dana, would you pray for our time together?
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes,
friend.
yes. Yeah, everyone just take a deep breath and arrive. Let your soul catch up. Jesus, we present ourselves to you. We exhale the day and we inhale the rest and the speaking that you have for us tonight, this topic. We love you, Lord, in the midst of this busy season. Lord, thank you for these women who took the time to join us tonight. And we ask you to nourish us as we come around your table. Would you refresh us? Would you knit our hearts together? Would you be the spark that we need for this holiday? We love you and we give you this time in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Dana.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get started, let's check in to see how everyone's coming in tonight. So Dana, how are you coming in tonight?
Yeah, if I'm honest, so good to exhale. Ready to have some downtime. I'm in the Christmas shopping frenzy mode, catching up on work. I have a full house. I have extra people staying with us right now, and kind of feels like Bethlehem, no room at the inn. But and it's been holy and messy and hard and precious and exhausting. And that's how I'm coming in. That's where I'm at.
Well, I'm glad you made the time.
Me too. It's always good to be with you guys. How about, yeah.
I am coming in feeling like it's Friday, really.
It does feel like Friday.
Me too.
I normally work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I've switched my days. So today was my work day. So after this, it's the weekend, and tomorrow is making cookies. And I feel like I get to go into a little bit slower, still crazy, but a little slower mode. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Yay. That's great.
Yeah. So would you guys tell us in the chat, which you all will get to watch and we might not, but would you tell us in the chat how you are coming in tonight? We'd love to see that, and we'll read it later.
Yeah, we will. We enjoy reading it later.
And Sherry, how are you coming in tonight?
Well, it was hard coming in tonight because I have a house full of people too. Our son Steven is home. He brought with him his fiance Autumn. And so they are baking cookies without me tonight. I know, I'm a little sad. But I'm glad that I get to be here with you guys. It's important. And there are so many cookies to bake. There are more for tomorrow. So we'll do that together tomorrow.
That's good.
And it's great having them home for Christmas because Thanksgiving just some weeks ago looked so different for us this year because Stephen and Autumn didn't come home because they were coming home for so long in December. And so Scott and I found ourselves wondering, what are we going to do with ourselves? Because it's just the two of us. And so we had this whole weekend planned of, just projects around the house and things that we haven't been able to get to, and some play and some rest, as well as just leaning into the sadness of not having them home. And then enter Maggie.
Yes. And we moved a year ago. And we've always lived near family and always alternated Thanksgiving every other year. So we had multiple places we could have been. And last year it was just the five of us, and Thanksgiving was really sad. I mean, it was just like a regular family dinner, which is fine. But we were like, okay, we need to do this differently this year. And so Sherry came into work one day and she's like, what are you guys doing for Thanksgiving? And I was like, oh, people, please come to our house. So we had Sherry and SJ over, and it was just the seven of us, but it was so sweet and so special. And it's amazing how when you add just one or two people, how it changes the dynamics socially in the room. And we had just such, oh my gosh, the laughter at that table was amazing.
Right. But it didn't happen. It didn't just happen.
No.
I mean, you and Chris were very intentional about that time together. So how did you come upon?
Yes.
Instead, how did you make the change from we're just going to sit around and stare at each other and tell each other what we're thankful for this year?
Well, and so I have teenagers. And so if I were to ask, because I thought about it, because that's the typical, let's go around the circle and say what we're thankful for. I think all three of them would have checked out in their own ways, particularly my older two. And so Chris, my husband, and I, a lot of times before we go out to dinner with friends or before events like this, we're like, okay, are there questions we can ask these people and what would work? And so we came to, instead of like going to the deep end of the pool that felt like we were dragging our kids there and throwing them in, essentially, they're like, no, I don't want to swim. We decided to go with two questions. And one was, what are three of your favorite, but not the favorite, but what are three holiday movies that you like? And so we went around the table, and it was interesting to find out one of Sherry's favorite Christmas movies is Die Hard, which I knew it was a Christmas movie, but I didn't know it was your favorite, one of your top three.
It is.
Yes.
It
and
is.
we had much conversation about people's comfort zone and discomfort zone with Elf.
Yes.
Because some people at the table were like, oh, it's
Who
just
knew?
so much awkward. I can't do it.
And I never even saw it that way.
Yeah. So anyway, we just had the most hilarious conversation, and my kids are jumping in and, oh, this one, what about that one? And then we talked about Thanksgiving disasters. And Chris asked that one, like, what is the Thanksgiving disaster you've experienced? And
I have one. Anyway.
Do you want to go, Dana? No.
You finish your thought.
Okay. But what my Thanksgiving disaster that my whole family was like, oh, tell them about this one, Mom, was the year I always make the pies. And one year I forgot to add the sugar in a pumpkin pie. So everyone, and like, I'm like famous for my pies. So everyone's like, oh, the pies. And we're all taking a bite, and everyone's like, but they don't want to say anything.
Right.
And all of a sudden I'm like, I think I forgot the sugar. So we just whipped creamed like crazy. But,
I was going to say extra whipped cream.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. But the dynamic of just asking those two questions that sounded very simple, and they sounded kind of shallow if you think about it. Like, we're not like talking about deep spiritual, relational, emotional things, but it brought life to the point where my kids are like talking over each other.
Oh my gosh, they lit up.
Yeah. And then we learned all sorts of funny stories about SJ and Sherry that we wouldn't have learned.
Yes.
Yeah. That were amazing.
There have been no other reasons to tell those stories before that night. So, but you brought such intention. I mean, like I said, you didn't just stumble into it, and not that you can't stumble into it, but I love the way that you loved your family so much to come up with this way of moving through it, and how beautifully invited Scott and me, SJ and me, into experiencing that with your family. Yeah. So you set a beautiful table, and not just the china and the table set. I mean, it was a beautiful table, but you set a space for flourishing, for life, for goodness. Yeah. And it makes me think of a poem that Dana had written, which honestly is where we started going when we came up with talking about this for tonight, because we came off of the last recording, which was about stories, and Dana brought some of her poem to that. And so, Dana, I would love for you to read your poem about the table.
Okay. Well, before I do,
set it up.
Well, before I do, to me, this is what I wish every table would end like, and every table would be like. But like what Maggie, you just shared, and there was joy at your table, but to discern who's at your table, where can you go? What can you talk about? How deep can you go? So to know who's coming to your table is a great way to set your table. And so, I'll just read it, and maybe I'll say more after, but this is called The Table of His Presence. And I wrote this after having some experiences at the table that reflected this. There are no ogres here, or if there are, they're changed by the end of the meal. This is a place for those who hunger and thirst, a place to be fed, to be nourished. All are welcome here. We come in and sit down, bringing our joys and our sorrows with us. We come just as we are. The table is set with simple beauty, flowers and place settings, color, invitation, deep red wine and warm crusty bread, garden harvest and roasted meat awaken us to our hunger. We dine in this spacious place. We dine on our sorrows and our joys together. And as we do, magic happens. As we eat and drink in this sacred space, walls come down, wars are won, loves that were torn are reborn, and resurrection promises are raised. We don't want these evenings to end. We sit and soak in the broken bread and the poured out wine. We marvel at the mystery of the presence with us. And after we're all poured out and filled up, the silence of the satiated radiates the healing and restoration that this table brings, and we linger in this holiness. And
good.
Thank you. We call these evenings around the table gatherings. And when I think of a table being around a table, I think of it as a metaphor, and I also think of it as the literal table. And I'm sure, and we would love to hear in a few minutes what some of those tables might be for you all, and some other questions we have. But this Thanksgiving for me was, I opened up my turkey on Thanksgiving morning and it was rotten, even before the expiration date, which, and I'm like, no, I said, honey, can you come here? And he goes, oh no, that's no good. So I'm like, there's my dog barking. I don't know if you can hear him.
No.
And where are my people? Anyway, there we go. I'm sorry. Can you hear him barking?
Not at all.
Oh, good. Okay. Where was I?
Rotten turkey.
Jeff rescued me. He brought home a ham, and we had ham for Thanksgiving. But and the weekend actually ended up being funny, and we had stuffing and ham, and nothing went together, but it was fine. It was good. But then that weekend we had my mother-in-law who lives with us. She actually suffered a minor stroke and was in the hospital over the weekend. And so a lot of upheaval. And an around the table moment for us, was when she came home from the hospital. Her daughter had come down from Pennsylvania and was helping out. And I was with my father-in-law who has dementia and needs to be cared for. When she came home from the hospital, we all sat around the Christmas tree together. And this was an around the table moment for me. And we popped a bottle of pink bubbly and sat in there, and we just talked about how kind God was to us during that weekend, how he cared for us, how he brought her home, and how being thankful for life, being thankful for the goodness of God on Thanksgiving weekend, when it started with a rotten turkey and ended up everybody being okay. But those are the moments that to me linger, that I linger in, that stay with me for longer than the weekend, but yeah.
I love that.
And I think we all long for that. Your poem starts out with that there are no ogres here. And if there are, may they be changed by the end of the meal.
May they be.
We long for that goodness, that place to be fed, that place to be seen and known and cared for.
Yeah, your poem paints such a beautiful picture of those times when you want to linger at the table, and the tastes of Eden that we are given in those moments. And I love I long for that. Yeah.
Well, even thinking of the table you described, Maggie, that you were giving tastes of Eden and sanctuary to maybe an unsuspecting audience. Maybe they didn't know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it is that you were offering at the table, but it sounds like a place that you all lingered and laughed and enjoyed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we do that at our Christmas tables or at our everyday tables or
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I just go back to my everyday table, which is with my son, who, as soon as he's done, which is about 30 seconds into the meal, he's like, can I go? I'm gone. And so to try, and it's not manipulative, but to try to engage the conversation in a way that makes the table want to be inviting.
Yes.
That he wants to stay. And that's why that moment was so beautiful, because the kids they chose
oh my God.
and engage. And so I think, as we've been talking about this, one of the things that comes to mind is, as a mom, I just so desire those lingering moments, and I have this longing desire for it. But then there's also the reality of just the situation of who's sitting at my table and the attention spans. And I think all of us probably are heading into gatherings, or maybe heading into gatherings where you have a longing for creating, or a longing to show up at a table in a certain way, and yet reality.
Yeah.
And so, there are lingering beautiful moments like Dana's poem that we can experience, but probably that's not all of our Christmas Eve and Christmas Day's experience last year or this year, right?
Yeah. And that was part of in the group that we have, and I think we sent it out in the email too, inviting women to go through and experience the Loving Through Listening reading plan again, because I think about how important listening is and asking really good questions. I know that when at a table and conversations get a little sticky, as they can, for me, it was a game changer to be able to, instead of bringing judgment to what's being said or reacting to what's being said, if for some reason it's really disruptive, being able to be curious and ask questions and explore with someone just a little bit more of what they're talking about. Because I'm realizing more and more that when people say things, I think I know what they mean, because I know what it means to me. We were talking about even the word belonging. Where my thought of what belonging was, without greater explanation, was different than Maggie's. And so getting to have those conversations around what that means.
What do you really mean by that?
Right.
Like, dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah. And again, without judgment, but with curiosity, and to find out, why our kids say the things that they do, why they think what they think. And just purely listening to delight in what you find, or to get to know them more, to draw them nearer.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And that plan, I know, really helped me. It was a great reminder coming into the holidays. And I think we had like 30 women who were going through the plan with us and responding in the Bible app. Right there, you can respond. And so hearing how it affects each woman and how she was coming to it was beautiful too.
Yeah, the aha moments of like, oh, somebody had said, the devotional that day was, I think, about like, you don't have to have the answers. Like, you can just listen, and you can, observe and have silence. Like, you don't have to come back with like just the right thing to say. And one of the women said, I had this great conversation with somebody today. Like, I essentially had a practice session, which I didn't, it was unexpected. And it was so relieving to just get to listen to this girl, instead of having to like rack your brain of what am I going to say next? And how can I respond wisely, and all of that. Yeah. So that was a really sweet to go through it. So if you haven't gone through that before, it's, if you go to the YouVersion Bible, just the Bible app, the main Bible app, and just look up Loving Through Listening. And Sherry's going to drop the link into the chat as well, because we can multitask. But Loving Through Listening on the Bible app, you just look that up, and it's an 8-day plan that really walks you through attuning well to people. And really, it's calming yourself on the inside and just observing and being with, being present.
Yeah.
So can I ask, who's Maggie and Sherry, who's at your table this Christmas, and what are your desires and hopes, and how are you going to set your table?
That's a great
I'm
question.
gonna let you answer
Okay.
first.
Yeah, I'm coming to several different tables. I think about This weekend, we are having our annual tree trimming party because we get our Christmas tree and then we invite people over to help us decorate it. So that's this weekend. And it's festive and it's easy and it's fun because it's just casual. There's no airs about anything. And typically we break out all the Christmas ornaments and we talk about the significance of each one as we're putting it up, unless the sailor's youngest son, Josh, who loves putting ornaments on trees, he just wants to put them up. He doesn't want to hear about the stories, but it's fun all the same. And then we are learning the whole blending of families. As you know, our daughter-in-law to be, we love her family too. So learning how to not make them choose, but how can we blend some of this? So for Christmas Eve, we're going to go to her parents and celebrate with them, all of us and all of her family. And then for Christmas Day, we'll have Stephen and Autumn, and it'll be the four of us. And our house has always been super casual. I mean, I don't think we get out of our pajamas all day.
I love that.
So super cash, lots of food, slow, good questions. And we're going through a season also of Swedish death cleaning, which is a whole other conversation. But essentially, it is downsizing and getting rid of stuff. And it's like a level up from Marie Kondo, because we're really not wanting our son to have to clean our stuff out after we die, to put it bluntly.
That's death cleaning. That's what it is.
So we're hoping to spend that day going through photo albums, going through things that have been significant to us, and asking if there are some things that he might want to have now instead of waiting until we're gone. So it's a different Christmas for us, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and our Christmas, like I described with Thanksgiving, since having moved last year, we were supposed to fly home on Christmas Day back to Seattle, and we were going to hop on a 7 a.m. flight and be to Christmas, to be at my in-laws. We've always in the past done Christmas Eve with my family and Christmas Day with Chris's family. And so we were going to get there in time to arrive for Christmas dinner. Well, our flight was canceled and we didn't get to go out for several days. So last year's Christmas dinner was like at a gas station because we had no food in our house. It was epic. So this year, like it's all uphill from here. I mean, like you can't get much worse than that. So this year we're flying on Christmas Eve, and
smart.
There'll be a combination of going to my in-laws and my mom, Marsha, on the call. We're going to my mom and Mike's on Christmas Day lunch, and then so there'll be two different tables in the same day. And
look at your mom smile.
It'll be lovely. So I'm just hopeful to be with family and to not be at a gas station. Yeah, but truly just the being with family. And my kids I was asking them the same question: what are you looking forward to? And being with cousins is the best.
Yeah.
So,
how about you, Dana?
I think it's going to be more quiet too. My in-laws will be with us, my son and my grandson, and not sure exactly what that schedule will be with my grandson, but they'll be in and out, and then a couple of other people who don't have somewhere to go, and they're going to be with us. So really looking forward to being with, just filling up our table. So I don't know what we're eating yet. It's not going to be ham, I don't think, and it's not going to be turkey. It's something different. But yeah. And also just want it to be restful, relaxing, nourishing. So and welcoming. Yeah, I love what you did on Thanksgiving. And yeah, I have a little 4-year-old. How do we get him to enter in,
Yeah.
Pretty easy, actually, but
yeah. Well, I would love to circle back for a moment. And we're talking, about being at the table and being intentional and listening and creating these environments. And your poem answered this question actually so beautifully. But like, what is our why? Like, why is it that this is important enough that we would talk about it tonight?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that.
For me, it takes me to that search for Eden. That longing to be back in that place where nothing hinders, there's nothing in the way of knowing each other. There's no shame, and being together, creating that space for flourishing and loving each other well. It just nothing in the way between us and God and us and each other. And I just know that's my heart's desire for the holidays.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. How about you, Dana?
Well, I immediately go to we're created to be a part of a community. We're created to be hungry and to be thirsty and to offer quenching of those things to one another, just like Jesus, the Father, and the Spirit are with each other, and we're made in his image. And my heart also longs for the people that I love to know what I know about God, and not all of them do.
Yeah.
And so how does that magic happen at my table? That's really what I want to invite to, curiosity about why do I believe the way I believe? And yeah, what does it look like to talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, it's funny how each of us had like an immediate, like, well, that's
It's
what it
this.
is. It's this.
This
But
what
and
comes
it's not
up.
like judgmentally, it's this, but
Yeah.
just
Right.
that's like it's an instant. And for me, it was, if we are called, the first greatest commandment is to love God and love each other. Like, this is loving. This is how we love each other, which feels like, and I've been steeped in that loving through listening plan this week of, we love people well when we listen and attune to them and ask good questions and name things. So it's a different context, in the sense that I feel like loving through listening is a lot of like a one-on-one conversation with a friend, whereas the context around a holiday table particularly, is not necessarily always the safest of places, or it doesn't have to be. But just showing up with intention and care and noticing. And even if it's a really rough table holiday experience with family dynamics, and sometimes you just kind of have to sit and grin and bear it, but even noticing people on the table and hearing things that they say, and maybe following up with them later and having that side conversation of like, I noticed this, and I noticed when somebody said that seemed to upset you. And just in those little side conversations, helping people feel seen and known.
Yeah. That beautiful intention.
Yeah. But just loving, this is how we love people. And that's what we're called to do.
Yeah. And that's what we sensed around your table at Thanksgiving.
Thank
Through
you.
laughter and their exuberance. That's a great word.
Yeah.
For how your kids moved that day.
I love that.
It was good.
And one more thing I'll say is simply the desire for joy in this world that we live in. It can be so hard. And so how can our table be a sanctuary and a place of joy? Yeah. Like you said, Eden, Sherry.
I long for that, for sure. Like you said, it's in us. We were created for it.
Our hearts long for Eden, for ways of experiencing the goodness of God with each other, and to love each other well. We have included the entirety of Dana's poem in the YouTube description, so check that out. There are also links there to help you continue exploring this concept of being around the table intentionally with your loved ones. And we would love to invite you to join us for our monthly Around the Table live Zoom calls, where you get a chance to participate in the second half of the call. You can find the link at thedeepeningcommunity.com. And if you enjoyed this video, would you take a moment to like it, share it, and subscribe to Zoe's YouTube channel? Thanks so much. See you next time.